I almost never do this, but I'm going to do 2 mini spoiler-free reviews on the same GD video. Why am I doing that? Well, because I did a double feature yesterday, and because I'm going out of town this weekend, and because I loved both of these movies, and I want to tell you about them. So hold on to your butt cheeks, or I'll let Megan tell you what to do here.
Hold on to your vaginas.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Garage. Gerald here with you, of course. And like I said in my cold open, I'm going to be doing 2 reviews that will be timestamps down below. So if you only care about one or you only care about the other, then you can click on which one you care about and you can watch that review. Also, make sure you stick around for the end of the video, even if you don't want to watch the F1 portion. And again, there are timestamps below, but I want to tell everybody about channel memberships. And if you're a fan of this channel and you visit it regularly, you might want to stick around and check that out as well. First up, let's talk about the new sequel to the wildly successful horror comedy, M3GAN 2.0. After the underlying tech for M3GAN is stolen and misused by a powerful defense contractor to create a military-grade weapon known as Amelia, M3GAN's creator, Gemma, realizes that the only option is to resurrect M3GAN herself. Oh boy. So I kind of gave it away in my cold open, but I love both of these films and I wanted to make sure I did a review for each of them. This movie is made for me. This franchise is made for me. I want to preface this review with that. I'm going to be showering praise on this thing. Now, if you look at a neutral critic or you tune into a highly sophisticated or highly respectable channel or critical outlet, they may or may not like M3GAN quite as much as I did. In fact, M3GAN herself might not even like this damn movie as much as I did. There's not an audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes yet, but just to prove my point, it's almost exactly split down the middle with critics right now, with 121 reviews at time of recording. It's at a 58%. 60 would be considered fresh, so it is currently rotten, and that's fucking wrong, guys. 42% of you, I'm looking at you. I'm kidding, you're entitled to your opinion. The film itself is campy fun. It is an absolute blast. It is a great time at the movies if you love this character. So the character of M3GAN, this kind of fembot that has these murderous tendencies and is lacking the morality and the humanity that a person would need to know when to kind of have those barriers and have the filters and basically not kill people when you get angry or when you're trying to protect someone that you love. That was a failsafe that was missing in the first model, but hey, it was a beta test. What are you gonna do? They did a great job of kind of keeping that intact and still having her be that kind of foul-mouthed, almost like a mean girl, but a fembot version of that. She's a little bit older. They have a thing in the script where she says she wants to be a little bit taller when Gemma is kind of like resurrecting her and bringing her back to life. And obviously that was a really cool tactic to employ because the actress, Amy Donald, has aged a few years since the first one was filmed. So that's a really cool way to explain that. I'm going to tell you that I think I like M3GAN 2.0 better than the first film, and I loved the first movie. We get our normal returning main cast here, which is basically Allison Williams playing Gemma, who is Katie's aunt, portrayed by Violet McGraw, who is also a few years older. Her acting is a little stale, but I always feel weird and have reservations in like critiquing child actors. I mean, this is not an Academy movie. She's doing the best that she can do. And she is a really fun character, especially her connection with M3GAN, which gets kind of reignited throughout the course of this film, despite the kind of horrific last act of the first movie. This is, a lot of people have said, T2 with a female robot, right? And a little more comedic and a little more slapstick and silly. That's true. I mean, that is essentially what this movie is, and that's kind of the blueprint for this film. But I also picked up on elements of Ex Machina. I picked up on elements of like Star Wars and callbacks to that. We got the addition in this film of Jermaine Clement, who is an actor that I absolutely adore. He is effortlessly funny, just the way he looks and acts and his mannerisms are just funny to me. So I was biased in that casting for sure. He plays kind of like a Tim Cook type person who would be running basically the version of Google or Apple in this world. And he's responsible for a lot of the tech that's being used in the movie, and some of it's being used maliciously, and some of it's being used for like AI purposes that we're even seeing in our own world today. We also got the addition of Ukrainian actress, and you've seen her in the trailers, portraying the villain in this movie, Amelia, which is basically the mirror to M3GAN, who has a very similar prototype and intelligence and AI built into her. Even though they're basically the same project or the same versions of whatever that software is called, one of them is using it for evil and one of them is using it for good. So you get that classic kind of literary battle of good and evil in this movie too. But the Ukrainian actress is Ivana Sakno, who showed up in the Ahsoka Star Wars series. Speaking of Star Wars, she was also in Pacific Rim Uprising. She has a very familiar face. She's probably done a lot of TV work and stuff like that too. I just recognize her, and she actually looks a lot like Alicia Vikander, of course, who portrayed Ex Machina in that Alex Garland film. Her character is portrayed much more sensually, especially when she's seducing certain characters in the movie, the way she dresses. She's older than M3GAN in terms of her prototype. So that's where the Ex Machina comparison kind of comes in, is they kind of use that inherent kind of sexuality of her appearance and her looks to play into the story also, but they use it in a somewhat comedic tone. It's never too serious or too kind of awkward. When it comes to negatives about M3GAN 2.0, the main negative that I will say is there's a and I can't give it away because it's spoiler free, but there's a casting of a pretty prominent character in the film that ends up being a heel. And there's a plot twist and a reveal when we find out, oh, that person's actually a bad guy. And, you know, they're not who we thought they were. And that's fine. I didn't have a problem with that plot twist, and I actually kind of saw that coming. It was kind of predictable in that way, which could also be seen as a negative. But when it happened, they took the opportunity to literally spend the next like 15 minutes explaining why. And when I say explain it, it's the person literally telling us for 15 minutes, was sometimes with literal visual aids, like a presentation almost, and then just a lot of exposition, a lot of narration. I did this because I want this to happen, and I'm trying to fix this, and I want to save this, and you should have known, this is that. And it's literally just 15 minutes of that person just like dumping exposition. And because of that, the movie runs long. It definitely is too hefty in the runtime. It's exactly 2 hours long, and I feel like this type of campy, silly, over-the-top, unbelievable sci-fi horror comedy needs to be in and out, quippy, quick, like the first one was, in my opinion. So 2 hours is too long for this type of film. It should have been more like 130 or 140. So if you can reduce that exposition dump when we get our plot twist, I mean, even if you don't like the plot twist, if it's quick and it happens and then the movie's over, you probably don't have time to really care. So M3GAN 2.0 from me, out of 10, is going to get a 7. A 7 out of 10, but it is a good time at the movies. It is a campy summer good time. Go check it out if it's your cup of tea. Now, shifting over to my other mini review that I wanted to cover on this channel, and that is for F1 the movie. Racing legend Sonny Hayes is coaxed out of retirement to lead a struggling Formula One team and mentor a young hotshot driver. Brad Pitt is the aforementioned Sonny Hayes, the elder race car driver in this film, who is one of the best in the sport. He is a bit of a legend in the sport, but he doesn't have the accolades to show for it. It's more of a word of mouth. And it's like a lot of like urban legends almost told in his honor, but he doesn't have any trophies. He hasn't won any big races, especially in Formula One, which was his bread and butter in the early part of his career in the 1980s, and they talk about that in the movie. As this is a spoiler-free review, I'll keep it pretty generic, and the most generic and easiest way to explain this film, which I really liked, by the way, is this is essentially Top Gun Maverick with race cars versus jets. If you take Tom Cruise out of the film and you replace him with Brad Pitt, which, you know, they're both in the same bracket in terms of like their Hollywood status, I would say. And then if you take jets, fighter jets and military jets out of this equation and you replace it with F1 race cars, then that's what you have. So that's the easiest way I could explain it to you. I know I'm not the first person to say that, but that is truly what this is. So it's directed by Joseph Kosinski, who's the same director as Top Gun Maverick. And I can tell you right now, he can do an action movie. I knew that with Maverick. And he also directed Tron Legacy, which I thought was decent. Oblivion with Tom Cruise. So he can direct action films, and he has a pretty unique style of that frantic, always in motion kind of filmmaking, obviously with the jets, and then here with the race cars. Very similar speeds, actually. One's on the ground, one's in the air, but same shit, just a different setting. When it comes to performances, and I've said this before, Brad Pitt's one of the best we have. He is a legend among us. I mean, he's one of the great Hollywood stars. He is a movie star, and I don't just mean he's a person in movies. I mean, he's an actual movie star. He walks a little bit above the ground when he walks down the Hollywood Boulevard. And in a movie like F1, he's able to dive into a little bit of his Tom Cruise. You know, we don't usually see a ton of action spectacle from Brad Pitt. We usually don't. We usually see the debonair kind of ladies' man, or, you know, whatever, or dramas. Obviously, he's done some great stuff there too. I know he was a stunt man in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and had some good fight choreography in that movie. But generally speaking, over the course of his career, he hasn't done a ton of action movies. There's been a few here and there, but it's usually the hot guy or the really cool, suave businessman, or whatever you want to say. That's Brad Pitt. He can do the action star too, and he carries this movie with no problem. He carries it as if he's done them on the level of somebody like Tom Cruise or even Bruce Willis back in the 90s. Now, the main negatives I have for this movie is this is another one that runs too long, in my opinion. It could have been shaved by 15 to 20 minutes. It's going to be a little ironic when I tell you that I think it's probably going to get nominated for Best Editing at the Academy Awards. That's neither here nor there because long movies have gotten nominated before, so whatever. But aside from that, my main negative with this film, and it's tough with sports movies because this is not F1's fault, it's not Kaczynski's fault, it's definitely not Brad Pitt's fault or any of the other actors. But these sports movies suffer from this thing when they're trying to relay the events that are playing out to you in that sport, whether it's a football game or in this case a race. They have the whole montage of racing and the various laps that they're following and the cars that are following being basically narrated kind of by the announcers, right? Like the TV announcer or the radio announcer. And then they'll have the pit crew radioing to the driver. So there's very little back and forth or dialogue between characters when the events are happening. And of course, I'm talking about a race in this case, but I mean, it happens really in all sports movies. When you're watching the big game or whatever happen in the movie, the way to get through that truncated, you know, if the race is 3 hours and it's truncated in the movie down to 10 minutes, but the whole time we're hearing the announcers who aren't characters in the movie necessarily. They're just these kind of like faceless voices that are basically telling us what's happening and who's leading the race and who passed this person and why this person has a rivalry with this driver. And that irritates me a little bit because I don't feel like the audience is that dumb to where you really have to do that, at least not all the time for every single race. This movie really focuses on like 9 or 10, 11 races, different locations, and it does it at every single one of them, and it did start to get on my nerves a little bit. And the reason I know they didn't need to do it is because the best scenes in this movie, F1, are when Brad Pitt's in the car and the music goes out. We don't hear the score, right? And we hear what he hears in the cockpit of the car, which is nobody talking on the radio. That's not what I mean. I mean the sounds of the track, whether that's the bumpiness on the tires, the slight gravel that he might be driving over, or those little speed bumps that they go around the curves, the wind blowing by his head wearing the helmet, the various clicks that he'll hit on the steering wheel. The sound design in this movie, if I was predicting it right this second, which I haven't done these yet, it's getting nominated for Best Sound. This is a phenomenally edited and mixed sound movie. I mean, it's like off the charts how good the sound in this film is. Very similar to the movie I saw earlier this year called Warfare. Those are the two that I think have the best sound design thus far, and I would be surprised if one or both of those don't get nominated for the Oscars come January. You know, if I wanted that type of story to play out, I would watch a race on ESPN. You know, it feels like you're watching a archival footage on ESPN. That's what it feels like. And it's not very cinematic to me. Now, when you get outside of that, it is extremely cinematic. So the good definitely outweighs the bad here. But those are my main negatives that brought it down a little bit for me. But I will tell you right now that F1, the movie, which I hate, by the way. What are we doing with these titles lately for films? Do you guys need me? Like, I'll help you come up with titles. But it is a definition of a summer blockbuster. I hope this thing makes millions of dollars. I really do. I know Apple TV is going to be putting on streaming, but I don't know if they've announced a streaming date yet. And I also want to commend Apple TV. I don't imagine anybody from Apple will watch this review, but if they do, I want to commend you, because studios like Netflix, and I've voiced this on my channel publicly, I have a good relationship with Netflix. You know, they give me screeners and I get to go see stuff. But I mean, in speaking as a fan and not necessarily a critic, I hate their theatrical window thing and how they're kind of playing the system and releasing it for like 2 weeks, and not even in, I think they have a minimum of like 10 cities. So I'm in North Carolina. They're not going to release, I think it happened once with Knives Out that I got a release here in the movies and I got to go see it. Every other Netflix big release that's an Oscar player or whatever, I don't get to see here because it doesn't play my market in the theater. And I'll see it on Netflix unless it's like a screener opportunity. And even then, it's almost always on Netflix. So I want to commend Apple for putting this thing out in the summer, prime time, blockbuster season. You got Jurassic World coming out. We just talked about M3GAN 2.0. There's competition there, but Apple said, here's Brad Pitt in a race car. Here's the director of Top Gun Maverick. This thing's a fucking blast. Let's go. Adrenaline all over the place. And I loved it. By the way, a big shout out too to the supporting performances of Kerry Condon and Javier Bardem in F1. Man, this is a stellar cast. It really is, which is another reason why that whole ESPN POV bothers me, because we have these powerhouse actors that could be, you know, giving me a fucking show. You know, I don't need to watch an ESPN montage. So anyway, I did love the movie. So F1 the movie, from me, out of 10, is going to get an 8. It's actually one of the best movies of the year, guys. I would say it's in my top 10 of the year currently, which, by the way, that list is coming up probably, if not next week, the week after, because of July 4th. I'm going to put out my top 10 movies of the year so far, and I'll let you know where we stand. I might also do a live stream with a tier list of everything I've seen. I haven't decided yet, or maybe I'll do both. I don't know what the hell I'm doing out here. I'm just going to be talking about movies. If you like summer blockbusters and action flicks, and you like Brad Pitt, he does take his shirt off, in case there was any curiosity there. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. He still got it. All right, guys, I told you at the end of the video I was going to tell you about channel memberships. For as little as $2 a month, you can help me out. I need support out here in the garage to keep this thing going. And you get all kinds of custom perks if you do so. You get custom emotes that you can use in the comments section or on any of my live streams. They include a custom emoji of my head with the beard. Microphone, calm down. I know it's exciting. There's also one of Timothy Chalamet doing his thing. Mikey Madison holding her Oscar from last year. God, so good. The mom from Parasite. I recently added the aforementioned Tom Cruise giggling like a fucking lunatic. I also have Toni Collette in there mothering so angrily. It's something to see. And of course, Queen Ariana Grande sipping some metaphorical tea with the pinky out. You also get access to members-only live streams. Most of them are going to be utilized to brainstorm my Oscar predictions. I'll be doing them at least monthly right now, and I'll get on the horn with my members to come up with the order and reorder them, and then I'll release it publicly on the channel after we kind of come up with what the predictions are. You guys can help me collaborate and do that every month, among many other things and many other perks, including early release for most of the videos I put out. So if you're into that, just click join down below and join the rest of my garage executives out here. By the way, if you are a garage executive and you're a current member of this channel, I love you so much. It means the world to me. Thanks for tuning into this double feature review. I'll be back next week with all kinds of cool content for you. Until then, I'll see you next time in the garage.